How do I stop worrying about what everyone else thinks? Welcome back to the Secure Husband Podcast. Bruce Abbott, certified professional coach and founder of SecureHusband.com, where I help good men get unstuck in their life and their marriage. Us wounded guys, we tend to be people pleasers. We care so much about what other people think, even complete strangers. I would see guys that had this "I don't care" attitude, and I would be so envious of that when I was younger. I loved that approach to life, and I wanted to live like that. But what I found is instead, I would perform for everyone else. I was careful with my words, my actions, my decisions, basing my identity on what other people think, second-guessing actions, filtering my truth to avoid judgment under the weight of other people's expectations. And this was something that I struggled with. In my worst moments, when I felt broken and burned out and unsure of who I am, I would try to be this good husband and solid provider and guy that everyone liked because I didn't want to be that guy. But what was happening inside? I was filled with resentment and anxiety and loneliness. I was more concerned about what everyone else thought than what was truly authentic and honest to me. So let's look at this through the lens of the Secure Husband process. And we start with awareness. And we just notice that people-pleasing pattern. There's a long list of ways that we make ourselves small because of this people-pleasing need for validation. We might be in situations where we don't speak our truth if we knew somebody wouldn't agree with us. Maybe you stuff your emotions. You avoid conflict, don't speak your truth, don't say yes when you want to say no because you fear judgment or disapproval. This is all self-abandonment. Our last podcast, we talked about self-abandonment in marriage. You think you're being a good husband, team player, but you trade authenticity for approval. So just ask yourself, whose opinion matters more than your own? It never even occurred to me that I wasn't living for myself. I thought that's what I was doing because if I was able to keep the peace, then that was good, right? That was a good thing. Let's approach this with intention and curiosity. And just notice where you are showing up with the people-pleasing patterns. Notice where you are giving up your agency. And then we make a choice. We choose to value our own voice, our own opinions, our own thoughts. This is going to be incredibly uncomfortable, but being intentional about these choices, it allows you to learn to live in alignment with your values, even if you risk disapproval. So you have to consciously make a decision that I want to learn to trust myself more than I trust the opinion of others. Now, does that mean you completely shut down what other people think? No, it's great to be open-minded. But if you're passionate about something, or if you feel this is not right, this is where it's okay to disagree, even if it means conflict, even if it means being misunderstood. Journaling was not something that I was really good at, but I've started doing this a lot more because you can look back and see patterns. And so I'm always noticing if patterns start creeping into my life. So I encourage you to journal. Journal each day. Look at ways where you did loving things for yourself, ways in which maybe you self-abandoned. And I don't say to do this to shame, or blame or feel guilty or any of those things, but just to be able to bring awareness. And that allows you to choose your own thoughts and your feelings and desires, not in an arrogant way, but as a man with worth. Then that allows you to lead your life and your marriage, your family. You stop lying to yourself to make others more comfortable. If your compass always points toward other people's expectations and you need to follow those, well, this is going to be a great task for you to do. And then you start that inner dialogue. You meet that part of you that needed that validation. This is where you go deep. Every single podcast, I talk about that inner child because he is running your marriage. He's running your career. He's running your life. This is where you sit down. You visualize that part of you that felt anxious when others were disappointed. And this started when you were really young. there's a part of you that craved validation. Maybe it was you as a small boy trying to be nice, make everyone happy, don't rock the boat, so that you could be seen, liked, approved. That little boy inside is still running the show. So you start by talking to that younger version of you, deep inside of you, and you don't shame him. You don't tell him you need to man up. You bring compassion, and you let him know you don't have to earn love anymore by performing. You're already enough. Even when people are disappointed, even when they misunderstand you, even when they don't give you outward signs of approval or validation, you are loved. You are enough. You are worthy. This can get very emotional. When I started doing this process, this inner child process, I would picture myself in some really, really rough situations that I had experienced growing up. And I just remember the first time I did this, it was like I was literally in tears. You're beginning a whole new pattern. It's a pattern of self-leadership. It's very, very emotional. It's at that moment where I started realizing that if I didn't start showing up for that inner boy inside, he will forever chase approval and live in self-abandonment. I had to dialogue with that little boy, and I started doing that every single day. You have a conversation, and you stop and you listen, because that inner child inside of you, your true core self, he's going to give you some incredible feedback. He's going to show you where you were self-abandoning. He's going to say, hey, you left me by doing X, Y, or Z when I needed you most. So you've got to listen, and you dialogue with a higher power, something bigger than you, a source of truth, because you've got those false narratives, that false core belief that says, I've got to do all of these things to be approved. So you listen to that divine guidance. You listen, you dialogue with that higher power through prayer, meditation, introspection. You connect that little boy inside with that higher power, and you work all of this together. And what this does is this gives you a sense of truth, what it looks like to be honest to yourself, what it looks like to be honest with others. And that's part of finding that next loving action, is what does it look like to be living in authenticity, to be truthful, to be honest, going way out of your comfort zone. You may be saying things that you've held in for years, but you're no longer pretending that this situation's fine. It's okay to disappoint others. It's okay to feel worthy. Some people will be fine with it. Others won't be. Now, does this mean it's okay to swing to the other side of the pendulum and be a complete jerk? No. See, the opposite of insecure is not being a jerk. The opposite of being insecure is being grounded and loving to yourself, loving to others. When you love yourself so much, you can be loving to others and hold your ground and hold boundaries. And you can have those crucial conflictual conversations, but you do it from a grounded, truthful, authentic place. Sometimes you're going to get pushback, but you're doing it out of love, and you're doing it out of clarity and presence. Your wife may push back. Your friends may not understand. Your boss may give you a hard time for standing up for yourself. But what you'll find is, for the first time, you're taking care of yourself. You're truly understanding yourself. You're not self-abandoning now. And it may feel weird. You may feel selfish, but it's what authenticity feels like. It's not always easy, but it is honest and truthful. That's the foundation of secure masculinity. So when you dialogue with your higher power to find out what my next loving action is, what decisions do I need to make without worrying about what other people's opinions are, this is where change begins to happen. This is where healing starts. You start making choices based on your values and not reactions of others. Maybe you leave a job. It paid well, but it was soul-sucking. Maybe you start couples counseling, even if your wife said, we don't need it. And you're able to set a boundary and say, yes, we do. Maybe starting working with a therapist or a coach, and not just shaking off the idea, but being able to say, you know what, I'm ready to do self-healing. Maybe it's setting boundaries with people who use guilt to control you. So each step is going to feel uncomfortable, but when you do it over time through practice, you're not asking for permission, then you start to bring peace. You finally feel like you're in control of your life and not just some puppet. You start to feel more grounded. So just check in with yourself every day. Ask yourself, hey, how am I doing? Did I do this action over here because it's aligned or because I want approval? I want to be liked. See, when you can ask that question to yourself over and over each day as you start to do things, you start to realize when you're addicted to approval and becoming a slave to other people's moods, and then you can make decisions rooted in authenticity, and you become a man of integrity. That creates the peace. It's not absence of conflict, but it is the absence of pretending. You start getting rid of that people-pleasing behavior. You don't need the validation. You don't feel like you always have to walk on eggshells, always editing yourself, hoping someone else is going to validate your worth. You get to self-validate. And worrying about what everyone else thinks, it's a wound, and wounds can be healed. You just have to begin choosing yourself one honest, grounded, small self-led choice at a time. You're not being selfish. You're not being arrogant. You're becoming trustworthy to yourself. You're becoming whole, authentic, secure. When you can show up authentically, the right people can finally connect with the real you. That's where intimacy begins, and you start to live a more secure life. I hope this podcast was helpful for you. Give me a review if you haven't already. Subscribe to this podcast. Share this with someone who you think may need to hear this. And visit securehusband.com for more resources. And if you need help getting unstuck, accountability, set up a free 30-minute consultation with me. And let's see how I can help you. And I'll see you again on the next Secure Husband podcast. Thanks for listening.